Tonight's town hall has been organized by the Central New York Solidarity Coalition in conjunction with the Syracuse Center for Peace and Social Justice, Voices of Women CNY, and Indivisible Cayuga. As a teacher of participation in democracy, I talk with my students often about the need for open, honest dialogue, engagement in our community, and about holding their representatives accountable in the interest of maintaining this fragile democracy. And that is what tonight is all about. In this most challenging of moments, we invite you to have your voices heard in an open forum, unlike the controlled, limited one hosted by Representative Katko a couple of weeks ago. Although Congress is not in session and he lives very close by, I'm sure you have noticed Congressman Katko has declined to be here this evening. So he is here in absentia in cardboard. Although Congress is not, oh, I'm sorry, I just read that. This lack of accessibility to his constituents has been apparent since our early attempts to engage him. From delivering petitions with the signatures of 600 of his constituents, to regular calls, letters, visits, and demonstrations, we have demanded that he hold open forums and hear our concerns. Yet, he remains unavailable. Because of the Congressman's reluctance to hold such open meetings, and his vilification of us for demanding them, we organized our own town hall meeting on March 18th at Nottingham High School, for which he was unavailable. After 400 people voiced their concerns to our unavailable representative, we began organizing this event, offering numerous potential dates for Representative Katko during his designated in-district workdays. He declined to join us on any of those dates. And as a result, we have changed our sign from unavailable to unwilling. This event is being videotaped and he will be provided with a recording. Although our topics focus this evening on is issues facing women and children, all concerns are welcome. We encourage all to come to the microphones and voice your concerns to the representative personally. However, for anyone wishing to ask a question or make a comment in writing rather than at the microphone, we have index cards available for that purpose. Our moderator for tonight's evening is Mark Rupert. Mark is a professor of political science and Chapel Family Professor of Citizenship and Democracy at the Maxwell School of Syracuse University. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
Well, thank you, Donna, for those introductory remarks. I need to say before I start that my affiliation with SU is for identification purposes only. My employer would like you to know that neither my participation in this event or anything I say tonight represents the official policy of Syracuse University, and a damn good thing it is too. And so what I really want to say is welcome everybody. And I'm glad you're here, and when I say I'm glad you're here, I'm not just being nice. I think what brings us together tonight is a shared sense that our country is facing profound challenges that, taken together, amount to a test of whether we'll be able to realize the potential of a democratic republic or even to maintain its semblance into the future. In the face of these challenges, this community has mobilized in ways I have not seen in my 30 years in Syracuse and my episodic activism over that time. So I could not be more proud of the way friends and neighbors and people I don't yet know have risen to this challenge, and I hope you feel that too. I think we are literally keeping democracy alive tonight. And so I'm glad you're here. And that we're here together, but I'm also deeply disappointed by the fact that our active faith in the democratic process is apparently not matched by that of our elected congressional representative, whose absence tonight and whose consistent refusal to meet with his constituents in public to discuss these very serious concerns speaks volumes. And so I'm glad you're here because we need each other and because Mr. Katko needs to understand that we won't give up on democracy just because it makes him uncomfortable. So, before we begin, let's agree, please, on some ground rules. And those ground rules are that we would ask you to line up over here on the far side of Mr. Katko if you would like to share a comment or a question for him, and then come one at a time to the microphone here. Please identify yourself, your name, maybe where you live, or whatever you want to share with us. And please limit your comments to about 2 minutes a person. We're going to have I'm sorry, was your name Chris? Chris here is our timekeeper, and he'll show you a little sign if you're running out of time, and we'll ask you to keep roughly to that time limit. Secondly, we'll ask you to please remain respectful in what you say, and to listen to what our fellow citizens have to say, and assume that they are coming to us in good faith to share sincere concerns that we need to hear and respond to, whether we agree with them or not. We'll ask you not to interrupt people who are speaking, but do feel free to show your agreement or disagreement using the red and green cards that you've been given on your way in. So those are the basic ground rules. And with that, I will ask that we begin by asking speakers to come up and form a line here on the far side of Mr. Katko and share comments or questions to the microphone in front.
Since people are running.
Yeah.
Hi everybody, my name is Gina. I am the Public Affairs Organizer, Planned Parenthood, in Syracuse. Last week, the Trump administration unveiled an overview of its budget for the next year, revealing sharp cuts, draconian changes to essential programs that women disproportionately rely on, such as Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, and more. And for the first time in history, singling out an individual healthcare provider, Planned Parenthood, by prohibiting it from participating in any program funded through Congress' annual Labor, Health, and Human Services bill. Never has a president's budget made such an extreme and callous cut to programs that so many people in the United States rely on. Remarkably, as a candidate, President Trump promised there will be no cuts to Medicaid, as a promise he has broken in spectacular fashion. Proposing to cut hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid program, which will result in millions of people losing health insurance coverage. More than 70 million Americans, including women, mothers, children, seniors, depend on Medicaid for health coverage. This is the worst budget for women and women's health in a generation. It singles out Planned Parenthood, guts programs designed to help women and their families put food on their table, get Medicare that they need, and make ends meet. Gimmicks and misdirections cannot cover up a deadly agenda that would hurt women and prevent access to basic health care in the US and across the globe. If passed, this budget would undo decades of progress for women when it comes to their ability to access health care, to pursue their career and educational goals, and lead safe, productive lives. This budget blocks millions of women from getting birth control, cancer screenings at Planned Parenthood centers. It eviscerates health insurance coverage for millions of women with low incomes, taking away sources of coverage for maternity care, emergency care, and prescription drugs. It takes food off the plates of families who are struggling to get by. It makes it drastically harder for women with low incomes to take care of their families, both at home and abroad. Congressman Katko, please take leadership role in crafting the House Appropriations Plan and ensure these draconian cuts do not harm those living in Congressional District 24.
Jim Brady from Auburn. I was one of the privileged few who got a golden ticket to your event at Onondaga Community College, Mr. Katko. I prepared 30 questions. I got to ask 0. So I still have 30 questions. First, Mr. Katko, the President and the Speaker have proposed large tax cuts. It's long been a Republican mantra that such cuts will stimulate job growth. Governor Brownback and the Republican legislature in Kansas cut taxes bigly to stimulate their economy. It's been a disaster for Kansas, especially for their schools, especially the same thing in Louisiana. So could you give us any examples of a jurisdiction where tax cuts have actually created jobs? Other quickies. Mr. Katko, as an experienced prosecutor, what elements would you need to see to support a bill of impeachment for the president? And at the Onondaga Forum, you said that you would be supportive of an initiative to negotiate drug prices for Medicare. And I'd like to know what action you've taken on that. Thank you.
Good evening, Congressman Katko. My name is Don Moore. I am a resident of the Strathmore neighborhood here in Syracuse. I am the co-founder of the New Feminists for Justice group. First thing I want to say is we have called you many times, people from my group, asking for a meeting. We meet once a month. We'll ask you again. We would love you to come and speak to our group. It will be an honest dialogue with respect on both sides, and we ask you again to come. My concern tonight is the anti-Muslim protests that are planned in 23 cities across our country. Seems to me that since the president has been elected, the hate that has come out of people is just astounding to me. The prejudice that I have seen come out since he has been elected is just mind-boggling and makes me sick to my stomach. So I can guarantee you on June 10th, when they are protesting Muslims, there will be a larger group, just like there was outside of your town hall, waiting to protest for Muslims' rights and everyone's rights here. I want to ask, what are you going to do as a congressman, an elected official by the people in this room and across this, your constituent? What are you going to do to stop these angry, hateful speech and crimes that are happening across our country today because of this election? It is appalling to me, and it seems to me that we have a president who is unhinged, and a lot of people are now following his footsteps. Please, we ask you as a congressman to step up and do something to stop what's going on.
My name is Peter Moeller, and I live in Syracuse. I'm one of your constituents, and you hear from me almost every day, but I never hear anything from you. About a year ago, Donald Trump made the statement that he could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot someone, and nobody would care. That was followed by a comment where he said that John McCain was not a war hero. And I think a lot of us thought, well, that's the end of this guy. Yeah. Who would ever vote for or support someone who has those beliefs? And yet, he was elected President of the United States. My question to you, Mr. Katko, what is the line that Donald Trump has to cross before you will stop referring to him as a nice guy? The line that Donald Trump will have to cross before other Republicans stop making excuses for him and saying, oh, well, you just don't understand him. I understand him. I think he's crazy as a loon.
Good evening, Congressman Katko. My name is Diane Brandley Brickman, voter in the 24th. And I have a great fear that we are also distracted by the horrifying news that is pouring out every day, that the domestic agenda is slipping by the wayside, and they're slipping bills through that we're not paying much attention to. So, I am appalled at your sponsorship. He is a sponsor of this bill. H.R. 38, Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. The real homeland security issue in America, which you say you care about, is outrageously permissive gun laws. 6,177 gun deaths since the beginning of this year. 1,277 teenagers killed or injured since the beginning of this year. 272 children killed or injured by guns since the beginning of this year. The gun death statistics from other developed nations are dramatically lower, proving that severely restricted gun ownership results in dramatically lower gun deaths. Yet, you believe gun owners from states with poor concealed carry laws should be allowed to conceal carry in states with more stringent laws. And here's the most appalling part of this bill, which if you read it, appears at the very bottom. It says, additionally, the bill specifies that a qualified individual who lawfully carries or possesses a concealed handgun in another state is not subject to federal prohibition on possessing a firearm in a school zone. May carry or possess concealed handgun in federally owned lands that are open to the public. That's your public parks, people. You're advocating for concealed carry in a school zone. Have you forgotten Newtown and public lands like national parks? Since you have previously voted in favor of outrageously permissive gun laws in the past, including to overturn restrictions on access to guns by the mentally ill, my question is this: is your vision of America one where all citizens are walking around with a gun on their hip?
Hi, my name's Scott. I'm from Marcellus. Thanks for joining us. So I think right now one reason why we're all here is trust, or a lack thereof trust. I think going forward in the next 20, 40 years, a lot of our political discussions are going to involve trust. And one thing that I have trouble with my neighbors in Marcellus talking with people is we don't trust the same people in politics. Sometimes they trust some different people in politics. So when it comes to the president, before we can even start having a better conversation about policies and discussions, I think there's two things that the president can do, and I'd like your help with this. To even start the conversation would be, one would be get the investigation with Russia completed as soon as possible, and the other would be release the tax returns. We need to do those two things before we can start having a conversation. Once we have those two things, we want to have those conversations. We want to regain some trust with my neighbors, our neighbors. But let's do those two things first so we can have a better conversation. I'd like your support for that. Thanks.
Mr. Katko, how are you doing tonight? My name is Chad Dawson. I live in Lafayette, New York. And I'm here to ask you, sir, you're a federal prosecutor. You certainly took your job seriously about, heaven forbid, Hillary's emails, which how many times were proven not to be a big issue. They're still pursuing it, and you helped do that. You did that. What's going on with Russia? What's going on with so much of the administration in Washington right now? What are the linkages between payments that are going on in Russia, back and forth, communications, back channels. We're hearing all these things. I don't hear you talking about that like you talked about Hillary's terrible emails, which you yelled about for years. Are you listening? You're a federal prosecutor. You're a representative in the House, and it is the House that can begin the prosecution for treason against Trump and against Pence. And I believe it should be both. They're in eyeball view, both of you. Where you as a party are using him as a foil to get an agenda pushed through, to keep us distracted. Well, we're not distracted. We're on the game. We want you to get on the game and begin this process. Articles of impeachment against Mr. Trump and against Vice President Pence. Get it done.
Hello, I'm Dan Moses, and I'm from Syracuse. And since the theme is children tonight, I'd like to ask the congressman to consider the example that the president sets for children through his behavior. I know as a young person growing up, my sense of what it meant to be an American was shaped by the examples of presidents like Kennedy and Lincoln and Jefferson. And I worry very much about the example that the current president sets with the constant lying, the unhinged belligerence toward political opponents, the terrible leadership, frankly, the dismantling of globally important alliances. What example does his behavior set? And after a certain point, what example does it set to continue supporting him? Thanks.
Good evening, Congressman Katko. I too went to your private party, and I had a lot of questions that I didn't get to ask, so I have a couple. I'll try to talk fast. But that's fascinating. The woman who talked about his sponsorship of concealed carry. In order to go to the private party, I had to be bonded. I had to have everything checked. That's interesting that you think that in a school it's okay to have a gun, and that was in a school, just saying. So here's one question. Several months ago you spoke to a number of your constituents at a sidewalk demonstration in front of Barney Stone, where you went for a fundraiser. And on camera, you agreed that Mr. Trump needed to release his tax returns as every other president has done for decades. However, you have now voted 6 times not to do that. February 27th, March 8th, the day after you were on camera supporting that. March 15th, 22nd, 28th, and April 5th, in case you forgot. Given the events in recent days and months, it seems more important than ever. Will you commit to supporting discharge petition H.R. 305, the Presidential Tax Transparency Act, as 4 of your Republican colleagues have? If not, why not? And I think in recent years, policymakers of both parties have acknowledged that the Reagan-era war on drugs was counterproductive, putting too many people in prison for too many years for nonviolent drug offenses with a discriminatory and disproportionate impact on African American men. As a former federal prosecutor, I trust you understand this issue well. Yet, recently Attorney General Sessions has issued a directive to federal prosecutors nationwide to always seek the strictest available sentences. What are you doing to bring some semblance of moderation back to federal drug laws? And what is your position on private prisons?
Hi, I'm Eric Vanderwood, some of you know me. I live in Syracuse. I vote here. I have for about 6 years now. On June 12, 2016, I woke up at about 5 a.m. to Twitter blowing up, to Facebook blowing up, to a bunch of texts coming from friends of mine. That was the day that the Pulse Massacre happened in Orlando. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that. And I'm not talking to Katko today, I'm not talking to Trump. I am decentering the white men that are threatening all of us. Bills are being proposed in states, and they're being discussed in Congress that restrict LGBT rights. that would take rights away from trans people, that would restrict the ability of loving families to adopt children and give them a home for the rest of their lives, that would take away all kinds of rights that the LGBT community has been fighting for 40 years. As we come up on the anniversary of Pulse, when I went to bed that night, I felt really secure. I was in Indiana, I was visiting my family, that wasn't why I felt secure. But I felt safe in the United States. On June 12th, 2016, that is when I really felt unsafe in the US for the first time. I know that November 9th was when a lot of people in this room felt unsafe for the first time. And we're all sort of in that space now, whether we got there early or late. Keep that fight in mind, right? 2 men had their throats slit defending Muslim women in Portland, Oregon, a couple of days ago. This is a culture of violence and a culture of toxic masculinity that we have to deconstruct. That's all.
Hello everyone, my name is Hassan Ibrahim. I'm a student of OCC and I'm a resident of north side of Syracuse. I like to address a lot of issues. I always come over at the CNY Solidarity meetings. I'm also an active too, so you know. There were some issues that I would always like to address to the congressman. 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with the on-take charter school board members. That was the first public meeting for the people of Syracuse, not just the Syracuse. They hold at the White Branch Library, and we all had to come up there and speak to them. And we were so excited to come over. But one of the big questions, one of the board members of the New American Women Empowerment asked was, you guys had the meetings in the last preview, like where you guys having meet. The board members, they had a meeting, all right? Okay, I see. And they had meetings, but they we don't know anything about meetings. Okay, charter school is for a nice refugee, but it's actually focusing only on agriculture. Teach people how to farm. They realize that Syracuse is a sanctuary city, and they come up with this kind of idea. And one of the interesting things is that they're saying that the school district is pushing out. School district is pushing students out, that are not doing well out of the schools, so that they can, go to teach, how to be farm. And most of the students are refugees. They came here to become a doctor or lawyers or whatever, because they live in America. America's land of dream. So refugees, a lot of refugees are fear right now. That's one thing that I want to address. The other thing was your last private town hall on OCC. One of the audience got up and asked about the refugees and the Muslim ban and all that issue. So he answers to Yusuf, one of the imam at the north side of mosque. So Yusuf, who's Yusuf? Yusuf is not a refugee. He's not an immigrant. He's your brother. He's American white man. So, and that's who he is. So he should be just looking at the real people, the refugees, instead of just looking at the people at your desk. And refugees are still fear. They can't get out of the state. There's still fear of the ban happening. They don't have jobs. Our communities are very slow to at least help the communities to find the jobs. That's one of the things that I want to address tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Congressman Katko. My name is Marcia Weissman, and I am one of your constituents, and I live in the city of Syracuse. I want to bring up the question that was raised by a previous speaker about your position, particularly given your past work as a U.S. attorney in the Northern District of New York, with respect to what is currently happening under the Trump Justice Department that is led by Jeff Sessions, a long-time segregationist. And his position is to bring back the very harsh punishments that have not really abated on the war on drugs. His charging memo sent to U.S. attorneys across the country would bring us back to the days of charging people for drug crimes with the harshest possible charges that they could face. Just yesterday, I was listening to a radio report about how long the war in Afghanistan has been going on, 13 years, and a call from one of your fellow Republicans to end this war. Well, we have been fighting a war on our own citizens in this country, the war on drugs, for almost 50 years. We are a country with 5% of the world's population and more than a quarter of the people in prison. We are a country with about 13–15% African Americans, but the prison rate for African Americans is upward of 50%. Our war, our domestic war, has been waged against people of color for almost 50 years, decimating communities and families. I want to ask you to use your position, not only as a congressperson, but also as a former U.S. attorney, to push back against the Sessions charging memorandum and stand with bipartisan congresspeople and senators to enact criminal justice reforms that are not harsh on crime, but are rather smart on crime.
Well, Representative Katko, my name is Susan Smith, and like my name, I feel like I am a partial citizen of Syracuse, where I used to live more than half of my life working at the university and for other maternal and child health clinics and services all around your district. But tonight I'm here to join with others who are interested in children and families, and in particular reproductive health. And I thank Planned Parenthood for their broad statement earlier. My question for you, Representative Katko, is will you support congressional legislation to preserve co-pay-free birth control? Or not? We want to know. So I want to just say and remind you, in case you're not informed, that 55 million women gained access to no co-pay birth control under the Affordable Care Act. And we do not want that to go away. We know that it will if you support this legislation. And the out-of-pocket cost to most women is about $600 a year minimum. That's an impossible amount of money for many working families. Thank you.
Hi, Congressman Katko. My name is Rachel May. I'm also a constituent. I live in Syracuse. And I'm the mother of a recent graduate of Nottingham High School. The co-standard this morning had a shocking statistic about the Syracuse school system. It said that 1 in 10 students are functionally homeless. President's budget and the President's Director of Housing and Urban Development are basically in all-out attack against any kind of housing assistance, fair housing, government assistance for housing, and my question to you is, what are you going to do? This is the largest city in your district, and the concentrated poverty is a national embarrassment in Syracuse. So what are you going to do about addressing this situation of homeless children in Syracuse? Thank you.
Hi, Congressman Katko. My name is Brenda Shea, and I'm a resident of Syracuse. I was at your town hall. I didn't get a chance to ask my question. I'm sure you're aware that a number of unarmed black people have been killed by police officers over the past few years, including children. Most recently, Jordan Edwards, an innocent 15-year-old, was killed when leaving a party where underage drinking was happening. He and other teens in the car weren't engaged in that teen activity, but he was murdered when an officer fired a rifle at the car, striking him in the head and resulting somehow in the detention of his brother, who was also in the car and watched his brother die. The video later showed that the officers lied on these children by claiming that they backed up aggressively. They had to walk back from that lie. What actions have you taken so far, and which will you pledge to undertake to equally protect Americans of color, and particularly children of color, from being killed by officers? And will you commit to fighting to maintain consent decrees already entered by local and state government that recognize this as a serious problem and involves inequality that needs to be corrected? I have the same question, but I'm going to ask it differently. Maybe he'll answer it this way. I'm a constitutionalist. I assume you also believe protecting the Constitution is paramount to our nation and its citizens. Let's pretend he nods his head and gets ready to embrace me in a flag. As you know, police departments around the nation have been forced to pay out more money by way of verdicts and settlements in recent years. Hundreds of millions of dollars annually because officers regularly violate the constitutional rights of citizens. What are you doing to protect citizens against police brutality, understanding that police brutality is defined as an infringement of a citizen's 4th or 14th Amendment rights? And how do we fix our police problem?
Hello, Congressman Katko. My name is Dana Balter. I live in Syracuse. I'm one of your constituents, as you and your staff well know. So I have a lot of things I'd like to say to you and a lot of things I'd like to ask you. I could stand here all night and not get through them all. I'm not going to do that because I'm choosing to show my neighbors and your constituents the respect that you refuse to by not showing up to talk to them and let them talk to you in public. And instead, I'm just going to ask you about one issue, which is health care. You are very fond of reminding us over and over again that you have broken with your party in a brave stance against the AHCA. I'd like to point out to you that that is anything but a brave break from your party when they don't need your vote. And it is not enough to vote against the AHCA. What you need to be doing is fighting for healthcare legislation that will serve your constituents and the rest of this country in extremely important ways. Every time I have spoken to you about healthcare and every time I've heard you talk about healthcare, what you focus on is cutting costs, which is important because healthcare costs are out of control. But that is only half of the equation. And the more important half of the equation is providing necessary services. And I never hear you talk about the services that are necessary. We've heard already tonight about a lot of services that are important for women and children. I'm not going to get into the reproductive justice arguments. I know those are futile with you. Suffice it to say, I support all the things that have come before me here. But I would like to point out two particular issues that you claim to be an advocate of. Those are mental health care and opioid addiction treatment. You spend a lot of time here in your district talking about mental health care, the importance of mental health care, and what a strong advocate you are. You tell us about the task force report that you issued recently with all of these recommendations, and yet you are not demanding mental health care services in national health care law. You are not requiring mental health care coding. You are allowing health care laws to be proposed and not fighting against them when they are cutting money for opioid treatment and drug treatment and substance abuse care. These are critical issues that must be part of our healthcare services, and we need you to stand up for them.
I need a stool. Hi, I'm Diane Dwyer, and I am from Camillus, and I live here, and I've lived here most of my life. If you could hear me, I could tell. I'm a member of the Central New York National Organization for Women. I'm a nurse, and I'm a veteran. And I have fought very hard for women's rights. I purposely wore this sweatshirt today. Never another season of silence. This sweatshirt we brought about in 1991 when we marched on Washington, and here we are again. It is time. We have to really make sure our voices are heard, and I am so happy to be here. I've been to the one in Nottingham, and we have to keep having these voices. So I'm saying to John, and I know you know me, John, because I saw you yesterday at the Camillus Memorial Day Parade, and I invited you to come again tonight. But he said, well, you know what it's like, and I said, no, it's really very nice, and you get to hear what's going on. But he did reject that, and he also had a few words of unkind words to me a little bit. He thought I had sent a nasty email about him, but I haven't found it yet. But anyways, I want to say the purpose of National Organization for Women has always been to fight for women's rights. You know, we started with equal pay for equal work, equal rights for education and opportunity, and one of the biggest things for equal reproductive health rights. Right now, I truly do believe we have an assault on women's rights. And I want to quote, I told you I was a nurse. And I want to go back and coin a phrase that we used a while ago. There is an assault on women from womb to tomb. We're assaulting them on prenatal care, and once again, it is the women that live, and we're assaulting them by trying to reduce Social Security and all the benefits. But what I want to ask, one of the things that I've had, I was really astonished. I worked in reproductive health and labor and delivery and everything, and when the American Health Care Act came out, it eliminated the essential services, one of them being labor and delivery, prenatal care. And I said, my God, I called. I said, that has been around since the 70s and before, that an essential service. I said, it is truly an assault. And I thought, let's get down to some real basic things that are part of everybody's life and liberties. You know, this affects everybody, whether you're, I'm going to say, whether you're Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative. I think most people believe that we should have good labor and delivery maternity care. So, John, I ask you, you know me, I ask you, will you support, will you reject again the Affordable Health Care Act if they ask you? You know, once again, you've been given a pass, right? You were lucky. You were allowed to vote against it. We all know it, right? He was allowed to. But trust me, if they needed that vote, he would have voted for it. So I will ask you, will you guarantee that you will continue to vote against any type of health care coming out of your house that deals with eliminating rights and does not give full health care for everyone? Thank you. Yeah.
I'm still Jim. I'm still from Auburn. I still have questions. Mr. Katko, I want to assure you I have not been paid for my appearance here tonight. And I very much resent you saying that kind of stuff about many of my colleagues and friends who appear in front of your office on the streets. I have several quick questions, but I think some of them are rather profound. What percentage of your work week do you spend on fundraising activities? What actions will you take to support the First Amendment and reassure Americans that the media is not the enemy of the people? Will you support passage of the Equal Rights Amendment? Where are the jobs for Syracuse's South Side? If corporations are people, why isn't Wells Fargo in jail? Finally, Mr. Katko, do you expect a primary opponent in 2018?
Hello again, Congressman Katko. So I also am not a paid protester, but I am a paid high school teacher. And I see a lot of you here. And Congressman Katko, I am sick to my stomach about the budget that has been proposed for public schools in the country. This education budget is horrifying. I'm going to read you a few of the statistics, Congressman, just in case you don't know. The proposal by Betsy DeVos, I know, one of the least, right, it took Vice President Pence to get her through the Congress. Proposal would cut the Education Department's funding by more than 13%. It would slash overall funding by almost $11 billion, including eliminating $2.1 billion in funding for teacher professional development and support. We need that development, we need that support for teachers if we want the best educated children in the world. That money could pay the salaries for more than 35,000 teachers. It would cut $1.2 billion from after-school care for some of our most struggling children and families. That serve 1.6 million students. And at the same time, this budget gives away $1 billion in new money to charter schools and to voucher programs. This is the privatization of a public good. Education is not an industry, as Betsy DeVos calls it. Education is a public good. And I want to know from you, Congressman Katko, what will you do to protect our public education system?
Before I address Congressman Katko, there's a cream-colored Volkswagen out in the parking lot that has its lights on. So if that's your car and you don't want the battery to run out, please go and turn your lights off. So my name's Andy Major. I'm also from Syracuse, and I'm an active member of CNY Solidarity Coalition, and also have had the opportunity to try and speak with you, Representative Katko, both in your office at one point and then as one of the folks who got a golden ticket but did not have an opportunity to ask a question. And a number of my colleagues here have raised powerful concerns about the budget and all the things that are proposed to be cut in that budget. And in various times, Representative Katko, you've said, well, the president just proposes the budget and you don't have to worry about that. I don't think we're very reassured that the programs that we care about and that we know protect ourselves, our neighbors, and people we care about are indeed safe. But where much of that money is going, there's two places where it's going. One of them has been addressed, which is massive tax cuts for the wealthiest people in this country. Something that many of us believe is outrageous and something that's unconscionable in a country with economic inequality off the charts. The other place where that money will go is to the Pentagon and to increased war making and weapons manufacture. And this is something that is that deeply will affect women and children, not just in this country, but across the globe through increased drone warfare, drones which are piloted right near, just north of Syracuse from Hancock Airfield. It will rain down death and destruction on people across the world. And that kind of activity will only further fuel additional terrorism, further violence, further endangering people. And we hope that you join us in recognizing that Mr. Trump is an absolute danger, not only to our country, but to the globe as a whole. And he needs to be constrained. So we need you and your fellow congresspeople and senators to join us in calling for his impeachment and the protection of people here in our country and across the globe. Thank you.
Well, hi, Congressman. We've actually met before. I was another one of the golden ticket receivers, and I actually got to ask a question. And I cheated, actually. I asked him a couple of questions. And the answers I got weren't very satisfactory. So I kind of want to follow up on that. Congressman, now, my biggest concern ever at the moment is climate change. And if we want to talk about women and children, poor people, including women and children, are going to be the most devastated people due to climate change. So that's my big concern, and I asked him about that. One of the questions I asked was whether he thought we should stay in the Paris Climate Accord. And he essentially said no. Yeah, you're right. No, because he said it wasn't enforceable. And if other countries dropped out and we upheld our part, that would just be awful. Okay? I'd like to point out that that's exactly what our president is now talking about doing. He's dropping out of the Paris Climate Accord. And I would also like to point out that Mr. Katko didn't have a lot of information on this because, as it turns out, two of the countries that he mentioned, India and China, as probable people who would not live up to their agreements and would drop out, have almost, at this point in the year, lived up to their agreements as for this year, okay? And we are talking about dropping out. So, Congressman, where do you get your information? Okay, another thing that I asked him about was the EPA, and how there has been an assault on climate science and the EPA. Again, he disagreed with that and said that because the budget, the temporary until September, I believe, budget, had been passed and had given all the money that that particular budget asked for to the EPA, that the EPA was just fine, thank you very much. Although we weren't supposed to respond, I did, and said, what about the scientists who just got dumped from the advisory board? Well, he kind of ignored that. So again, Congressman Katko, where are you getting your information about what's really happening to the EPA and to our efforts to curb climate change? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Scott. I just wanted to talk about Medicaid and SNAP assistance. We haven't talked too much about that. I know that's up to the budget a little bit. Just wanted to share a quick story of my mom. Maybe we can relate to this. I grew up on Medicaid and SNAP. as well as my 3 other siblings. My dad owned a farm in Tabor, which is outside of Rome near here. In the early 80s, it was doing really good, and then a landfill moved out next door, and it polluted the groundwater and got into the water of our farm and poisoned and killed the cows. So the farm went bankrupt. We were suing the town for, it took about 12 years to sue them in court. And meanwhile, when my dad got out of jobs, when there's 4 of us, we were on, back then it was food stamps. We actually had to go to the stamp thing. And Medicaid. So as the 4 of us, got injured and bruised and there's scars all over, Medicaid was there. My mom put herself through school. She got a master's degree from Syracuse, New York, and now she works at the VA in Murfreesboro, hiring nurses for the psych ward for the soldiers that get back that need PTSD treatment. So, the Medicaid and the SNAP, that's a bridge to get people from a bad situation to a good situation. Supporting the troops.
Anybody else who'd like to say a few words tonight?
We have the cards. If anybody wants to write a comment or a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring the cards around. Or if you have cards that you'd like to hand in.
Meanwhile, I'll take off my moderator hat and, no, please come up, and just say a few words as a concerned citizen. One of the patterns that I'm seeing that worries me that hasn't been mentioned tonight is a kind of big picture concern, which is what I'm seeing is the systematic defunding and repression of things I think of as pillars of a democratic civil society, and an emphasis on what Marxists used to call the state apparatus of repression. And by that I mean the military, homeland security, police forces, immigration enforcement, people with uniforms and weapons. And from a man with a clear authoritarian bent, very little respect for law, very little respect for civil society and actual democratic processes of dialogue, I find that deeply concerning.
Hi, my name is Katie Walsh. I'm from Geddes. And talking into a microphone is terrifying. But I decided to summon my courage, which is not a concept you are familiar with. If I could talk to the congressman, the only question I would have is, aren't you tired? Isn't this exhausting to get up in front of people and lie to their faces over and over and over again? Anybody who has ever tried to pretend to be something that they're not knows how exhausting it is and how much relief it is to let that down and just speak the truth, which is that Trump is a lunatic, and everybody who has a brain in their head and a functioning heart can tell that. We don't believe you. It's not working. Just get up and speak the truth. Be a person that your children can look up to and remember with pride when you're gone, because you're not going to be here forever. Well, what legacy do you want? Is this what you want your legacy to be? That you're afraid to come and talk to a bunch of nice hippies in a cafeteria about fundamental rights? I mean, that's insane. Sorry, I have a lot of feelings. I am very tired because I'm finding it hard to sleep at night because I am terrified. And I have very little control and very little power, and all I can do is come to you, Congressman Katko, and ask you to do your job and represent the people. And from there, it's up to you. You're not going to be here forever. We're going to talk about you when you're gone. Maybe not with nice words. I was just thinking about a great line from Hamilton, which is that legacy is planting seeds in a garden that you will never get to see. You are in a position of great power, sir. You have children who are going to remember you and tell people that they were your children. Who do you want to be for those children? Who do you want to be for all of our children and for us? Do you want to be somebody that good people can be proud of? Or do you want to be somebody that cowards and bigots and misogynists can hold up as an example? It's up to you.
Hi again, Congressman Katko. My name is Mickey Belossi. As I said in Oswego, that might sound familiar because I call your office, at least one, almost every day. Today, I have a question for you because next week I get to travel. I'm going to Europe. That means that I get the pleasure of going through TSA inspection. Sir, I am not a terrorist. I do not feel safer or protected by going through a TSA inspection. I now find out that I can't take my damn tablet with me because I possibly have explosives in it. So the 2 books I've downloaded, I don't know, I guess I'll buy magazines. The TSA agents sometimes find firearms in packed carry-on bags. Are any of those people ever prosecuted? What happens when the TSA finds a firearm? Are those people arrested? How many terrorists have been identified? The TSA check-through things are getting more and more stringent. What good is it doing, sir? You like to claim and profess your homeland security. Sir, is it really working?
My name is Dick Kornbluth. I live in Syracuse. And my question relates to the Department of Energy. The largest sector, growing sector of jobs in the United States right now is in energy efficiency and renewable energy. There are over 2 million jobs right now that are in that sector. And the budget cuts that are being proposed by the Trump administration will decimate the Department of Energy and the EPA, cutting about $2 billion, I believe, from the Department of Energy, eliminating such stalwart programs like Energy Star. The Energy Star program, which creates and labels efficient appliances, is credited with saving the average American consumer about $500 a year, and that's actually zeroed out in the new budget. The Weatherization Assistance Plan, which actually provides weatherization programs to help people in poverty save energy and be able to afford their houses, is zeroed out in the federal budget, the coming federal budget. And all of this is being done because Donald Trump and his people want to save jobs in an industry that has been dying consistently and continuously since the 1970s, the coal industry. I think, Mr. Katko, you actually should be ashamed if you support these programs.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Sam, and I'm from Syracuse, and I want to talk a little bit about our rights on the internet tonight. Mr. Katko, you weren't at the Oswego Town Hall to hear me ask the question when we were talking about that thing you voted for that would have allowed does allow our ISPs to spy on us. Well, there's some more things going on now. The director of the FCC and the chairman of the FCC, who was appointed by Donald Trump, is opposing something called net neutrality. I'm sure this is not a word that you're a newbie to use some internet slang. But what this means, now net neutrality stops internet service providers from charging a different rate for the same service depending on who you are. So that means if I'm some website that maybe comes up with some views of yours that you don't like, and you happen to be in cahoots with Verizon or Time Warner, you can have them charge them 500 times or so what somebody else might pay for the same service. One of the real big problems we've had with this is companies like Netflix, who compete with services for television delivery offered by companies like Comcast that also offer internet. They have been intentionally disadvantaged by these companies to advantage their own programs. Now, you're a proponent of the free market. I'm not sure that this is something that we would consider a fair playing field for innovation. These are new companies coming out with advanced business models. They should be allowed to compete fairly. So I'd like to know what you think of this tonight, Mr. Katko. Again, I'm pretty disappointed that you're not here to answer this question, but I look forward to hearing from you.
And I'm back again. And that question was asked at the private party, and Congressman Katko said, I don't know much about net neutrality. He actually said that.
Hi, I'm Deborah Rose, and I'm from Syracuse. And when I was a kid, we used to have these air raid drills in school, where we would pull down the blinds and hunker under our desks. And that was supposed to protect us in case the Russians dropped an atom bomb anywhere near our school. At some point, that stopped happening, I think because people realized that wasn't going to save us, and because the kind of threat of nuclear bomb being dropped by the Russians sort of kind of went away. I feel like I'm back there. I'm starting to feel the same fear I felt when I hunkered underneath that desk. And that's when I was afraid of the atom bomb, not when I was out playing. It was when I had to do that drill. But with what's going on with the Koreans and with us today testing our missile defense system by shooting off missiles over the Pacific Ocean, I'm thinking that there's a lot to be scared about in terms of what is going to happen to our world and our children. So there is a bill that is pending somewhere in the House in committee, HR 669, which prohibits the president from using the armed forces to conduct a first-use nuclear strike unless it is conducted pursuant to a congressional declaration of war. I don't want us dropping nuclear bombs, I don't want us dropping nuclear bombs, so for me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just a step in the right direction that we do this. This bill has been co-sponsored by 35 House members, only one Republican. Representative Katko, I don't see anything that needs to be bipartisan about pushing this bill through, so I am requesting that you sign on as a co-sponsor. So I don't know if anybody else filled out an index card that they want read, or if you want to turn them in at the desk, or if anybody needs an index card, please raise your hand and someone will give you one to fill out. If you want it read, you can pass it up here. So I have an index card that was submitted by Leland from the village of Camillus. He says, we need affordable quality health care for all. He is sick of the word access. Access to health care does not mean affordable health care for all. And he also says, let's push forward New York Health Act and cover all New Yorkers. Leland also wanted to say that Betsy DeVos does not need to make more money for to make more money from charter schools. Early education for all, not just the rich.
Yes.
Teachers are doing a great job.
So, wow, we have had some really great questions tonight. This video will be delivered to Representative Katko, so he does get to hear our questions this evening. We will also be bundling any of the cards that were written on that are out front, so that Congressman Katko can hear the concerns that we raise, the very impassioned voices of the citizens of the 24th Congressional District. And I thank you all for being here tonight. We hope you will consider getting involved in our coalition. I told you all the multiple committees that you can be a part of. You can sign up for our emails. You can like us on Facebook. You can visit our webpage at CNYSolidarity.org. You can follow us on Twitter at CNY Solidarity, or we're a lot of friendly faces. You can just talk to us and we'll let you know what we got going on. And we hope you'll join us for some of our upcoming events. On what's the date? June 3rd, from noon to 1 at Syracuse City Hall will be the March for Truth. This is a national day of action focused on the urgent need for transparency and an impartial investigation into the Russian interference in the US election and the ties to the Trump administration. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we knew that our member of Congress was in support of that as well? CNY Solidarity Coalition meeting will be this Sunday, June the 4th, from 3 to 5 at All Saints Bishop Harrison Center on Lancaster Avenue in Syracuse. Okay, I'm supposed to remind you that if anybody wants to help us clean up, we would love to have your support. I would like to thank now Mark Rupert for moderating this evening. Organizing tonight's event. To the West Tennessee School District for hosting us, and to its custodial staff, for putting in late hours helping us set up and cleaning up after us. And I'd also like to thank Ryan Skidmore, he's behind the curtain somewhere, for your able support in helping us set up and do all of the help that we needed this evening. Thank you to all of you for caring, for speaking out, and for holding our country and its representatives to account. Good night, and be safe on your way home. Thank you.